With your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's wish you a very Merry Christmas this Boxing Day with GB News Live. I'm Mark Longhurst, and coming up for you this Boxing Day afternoon. If you're heading out to see family or grabbing a bargain in the Boxing Day sales, well, you'll have to hit the roads as Britain's railways are at a standstill. RMT members on strike again in their dispute over pay and conditions. It's also brought a warning from the AA that more than 15 million cars could be taking to the highways today, with fears many town centres and retail parks could see traffic jams this afternoon. But if you do manage to navigate all the hazards and you get to the shops, you could be in for a bargain, as the shops are trying to shift unsold stock to get their cash flows moving. But new data claims shoppers are probably spending almost 5% less this Boxing Day as the cost of living bites. And many traditional hunts also taking place today. Labour now demanding for stronger laws to tackle illegal fox hunting. Let us know what you're up to today and how you're all coping this Christmas. Email us as ever, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet us at gbnews. Before that, though, latest news with Bethany.
Mark, thank you. It's 1 minute past 12. Good afternoon. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. Jersey police have confirmed a woman who was injured in an explosion at a block of flats in Jersey earlier this month has died in hospital on Christmas Day. 73-year-old Kathleen McGuinness's death brings the total number of people killed in the incident to 10. The blast, which took place just after 4 a.m. on the 10th of December, destroyed the building in St Helier. An inquest into the deaths will open this Friday before being adjourned while the investigation into the incident continues. At least 30 people are believed to have died as a result of a severe Arctic freeze that continues to grip much of the US and Canada. Officials say the worst-hit area is the city of Buffalo in New York State. Amid the snow, ice and freezing temperatures, thousands of flights have been cancelled and more than 150,000 homes are still without power. Russia's defence ministry claimed 3 of its military personnel have been killed at an airbase hundreds of miles from the front line of its war with Ukraine. Moscow alleged they were hit by falling debris from a Ukrainian drone that it says was shot down. The governor says no aircraft was damaged at the base in Russia's southeast. It's the second attack on the military site this month. It's understood it stores long-range strategic bombers. Kyiv has not yet commented on the incident. The UK's rail networks are effectively shut down today as members of the RMT union hold a fresh round of strike action in a dispute over pay. Hundreds of trains usually run on Boxing Day, but they've all been cancelled and thousands of people have been forced to make alternative plans. The AA expects more than 15 million cars on UK roads today, and Eurostar has also dropped all of its services, which run to London, Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam as a result of the action. Well, travel expert Simon Calder said the strikes are destroying the railways.
You 1 million people like me who don't have a car or access to a car who have to travel by rail. And to be told, oh, come back middle of January isn't good enough. The rail unions, I think, have completely misjudged it. The government has completely misjudged it. The passenger and the taxpayer are caught up in this middle of this kind of ideological row. And it's absolutely, all it's doing is destroying the railways.
Police say a shooting at a pub in Liverpool on Christmas Eve, in which one woman was killed, was not a targeted attack. The search is continuing for the gunman who killed the 26-year-old woman in Wallasey on Merseyside. She was taken to hospital but later died. 4 men were also taken to hospital with gunshot injuries. The final 2 skiers who went missing after an avalanche in the skiing area in Western Austria have now been found. Local reports say the avalanche happened yesterday afternoon, and it was initially thought that 10 people had been buried under the snow. Helicopters, searchlights and avalanche dogs were used in the operation to locate the missing people. And the UK Health Security Agency will stop publishing COVID-19 data early next month. The chief data scientist says it's no longer necessary as the country is now living with the disease, but that COVID will still be monitored. Data had been published weekly during the peak of the pandemic and every 2 weeks since April this year. Shoppers are expected to spend less in the sales today as the cost of living continues to rise. New research by Barclaycard Payments found the average customer intends to buy £229 worth of items in the post-Christmas sales. That's 4% less compared to last year. The study also found that a number of shoppers expect to turn to reselling sites to either buy items or offload unwanted gifts. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. Let's get back to Mark.
So, Bethany, thank you very much indeed. Raising the tone by trying to forget all about Tom Harwood's jumper. Suit and tie for you today. And if you're hoping to travel to see family or planning to head into town for a shopping spree, well, you may want to think again, having seen that news bulletin. Yes, we seem set for yet more travel chaos. Members of the RMT, of course, walking out once again in their continuing dispute over pay and conditions. And it's brought all of Britain's railways to a standstill today. Even special airport services such as Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted Express trains, they're not running. Well, it's all having an impact on our roads. The AA warning that more than 15 million cars are expected on our roads today. Shoppers and football fans, of course, adding to the congestion with all those Premier League games back on. Well, let's head to our reporter, Theo Chikomba, who's in Birmingham for this afternoon. Theo, I was going to ask you how busy it is. I think probably that picture behind you can tell us the story, the stairway to nowhere with nobody. And not even nobody or anything happening. We can't hear you at the moment, Theo. We've got a problem with the sound, so we'll try and head back to you and get a better link as we see 2 people heading up the staircase behind, trying to get to somewhere. But let's reflect on those passengers being warned to avoid all essential travel on the railways until the 9th of January. But people are still trying to stay on the move, with flights, ferries and long-distance buses reported to be busy. Well, let's bring in Simon Calder, the intrepid travel correspondent at The Independent, what is usually, of course, the UK's busiest station, London Victoria. And we've got the situation, Simon, that commuters are normally used to sort of engineering works over the Christmas period. But the whole point about today is that even those airport services, such as a Gatwick Express in Victoria, not running.
And forgive me, Mark, there's a sound problem here, but I think I understand what you said. Let me just put you in the picture here. I'm at Victoria Coach Station, which has been running 24 hours a day right through Christmas, as it always does. Tens of thousands of people getting through here. It's very, very busy, but everything's running pretty smoothly. And to give you some idea, there's about train buses every half hour from here to Leicester, to Leeds, to Manchester. So pretty good service as well. The airport services are looking particularly busy, especially to Gatwick, and unfortunately there seems to be no tickets left at all today. That's because 5 minutes walk from here at Victoria Railway Station there are no trains. Now normally they would be expecting to run a very limited service from London to Gatwick Airport and to Brighton. That has been cancelled. As you quite rightly said in the news, there are hundreds of trains cancelled today, not actually thousands of trains, because not that many train operators and not that many routes normally run. Eurostar has been completely wiped out by this. 20,000 people or more have lost their journeys as a result of the issues. And, well, frankly, we get to the end of this strike tomorrow morning. Then we've got the engineering works, which are going to disrupt things for another few days. They will end on the 2nd of January, just in time for the next round of strikes. 48 hours from the RMT, a day from ASLEF, the train drivers union, another 48 hours from the RMT. We've actually been told by Network Rail at Euston, which runs on the West Coast Main Line, don't bother turning up till the 9th of January. And meanwhile, GB News' very own and much loved Anne Diamond has been giving her thoughts about the rail strikes.
Well, we've lost that clip as well, which is going the way of the travel chaos, Simon. But let's reflect on what you were telling us about the airport services. So you've got Stansted, Heathrow and Victoria Express services out of action. So all those foreign travellers arriving at our airports can't get away from there unless they can get a coach. I mean, is this actually calling into question the whole issue of the rail network? We talk about broken Britain. Certainly it seems a broken network at the moment.
Well, yes. I mean, the hope is that, of course, in the new year, we will finally get the government, and ultimately they are the people calling the shots in this very, very bitter dispute, which has seen strikes for more than 6 months. But then where do you go from there? And I'm afraid today rather symbolises the mess that the railways are in. Here, it is absolutely clear that there's huge demand to travel on Boxing Day, but the railways being stuck in the, I was going to say the Victorian era, but you'd probably get more trains in those days, being stuck in the 20th century idea of, oh, nobody wants to travel on Boxing Day or Christmas Day, at the same time as across the channel in France, fair enough, they've got a rail strike on today, so lots of cancellations, but at least they're running some trains. And in Germany, it's just an absolutely normal Sunday service, not a Monday service. And so if you are going to attract people back to the railways, you've got to provide trains when people want to travel, not when you feel like operating them. And I've seen lots of relief coaches here where basically they put on an extra service because there's so much demand. So anybody in the railway who says, oh yeah, well, we don't run trains on Boxing Day because there's no demand, well, I'm afraid you need to come along here and meet the fantastic staff who are doing a great job in getting people moving across the UK.
Yeah, and very quickly, Simon, before you go, is it the case that all those services are already booked if you're trying to get a coach, long-distance coach, National Express and so on?
Sorry, forgive me. The line from you is affected by those Boxing Day gremlins. But forgive me. Yeah, National Express, Megabus, Flixbus, all running services. But please book in advance because although there are lots and lots of buses, they're proving very popular.
OK, everyone back on the bus. Simon, at Victoria Coach Station, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, let's head back to Birmingham now and see if we can catch up with Theo and all these Boxing Day gremlins. Just say a couple of lone travellers on the steps behind you. Obviously, they've tried to get a non-existent train. Have you managed to speak to anyone and find out if they're frustrated at all this problems on the railways once again?
Yeah, some people have turned up. I don't think they heard about the strike that was happening today, so they were turned away. Getting into the station itself, it's completely closed. There are just people just walking around, in and around town. But I've been here since the early hours of this morning. No trains at all today. Trains will be running again tomorrow. Depending on where you live in the country, in the south, Southern Eastern Rail saying trains won't be running until around midday tomorrow afternoon. So if you do want to travel, do check in advance. And I think the first train, I understand, is going to be travelling from Sheffield at around 10 to 9 tomorrow morning. So those of you relying on travel, especially on the trains, it's going to be disrupted essentially over the next few days. And we know over the last few weeks we've heard from the RMT union, Mick Lynch has been speaking vocally about that. They want better pay and conditions, particularly for staff and also for passengers who use the trains on a day-to-day. So it's been going on for months and it's likely to go on for a little longer. As we know, just after New Year, ASLEF, which represents train drivers, is going to be striking. So more disruption is on the way.
Yeah, and have you managed to gauge what the roads are doing there, Theo? Because obviously we've got the warning from the AA that given all these rail problems, people will take to the roads to get into the town and city centres.
Yeah, exactly. Here the car parks are full, the roads are full, people using an alternative way to travel into the centre here in Birmingham. It's pretty busy. New Street is normally the busiest station here. It's got connections across the UK, so people are using cars today. Generally, on Boxing Day, there are less trains, hundreds of trains, rather than a whole network working, but none of that is happening today. So the roads are busy. The AA estimating around 15.2 million journeys will be made across today.
Theo at Birmingham, thank you for that. More, of course, throughout the afternoon as we update people on the travel situation. Thank you for the moment. Our apologies, of course, for the various sound gremlins that seem to be getting into the system along with the rail problems. Let's head to the States now, where at least 38 people have died after the severe snowstorms and hurricane-force winds that have battered much of the United States and Canada. Well, we're told many froze to death in their own cars or were found entombed in snowdrifts when rescue workers got to them. Those crews now trying to dig out more drivers and residents, especially in Buffalo in New York State, the worst Arctic blizzard there in 45 years. It even buried the snowplows and breakdown trucks, stranding motorists and cars, killing at least 13 people yesterday. The lethal conditions started on Friday, drawing freezing air down from the Arctic Circle and creating what meteorologists described as a bomb cyclone, bringing freezing conditions as far south as the Mexican border. Well, the numbing cold, combined with the howling winds and heavy snow, produced conditions that the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, described as like going into a war zone. Let's get now the thoughts of Jim Dale, senior meteorologist at British Weather Services. Jim, thank you for joining us. What is this bomb cyclone that they described, and why did it hit so quickly and so far south?
Well, it's quite technical, actually. This is an area of low pressure that found its way southwards from the Arctic, essentially northwest Greenland. It deepened and it moved south, and on its western flank, all that cold air you've been talking about, that freezing cold air along with the snow, sank all the way down as far as Texas and even north of Mexico. So it went essentially most of the United States. On the eastern side, the eastern seaboard, it was more the rain side. They were on the mild side and the windy side, which is why they saw regionalised flooding in places like the New York seaboard there. But this was an unprecedented event. Yeah. It was one of those things. I say it wasn't expected. You could see it coming. A week ago, you could see it coming. But the degree always catches us by surprise in terms of what it does, and particularly Buffalo has been hit twice now this year.
Yeah, we had the president, of course, issued a warning, take this seriously. And it does look like one of those disaster movies, because I think the other aspect was that the winds, they were hurricane force in many areas like Buffalo.
Yeah, they were. When you get that, you've got the severe wind chill that goes with it. You talk about people dying in their cars. Basically what happened in the United States, a good part of it, it turned into the Arctic. The dislocation of the the polar vortex, which is basically what moves around the Arctic on a normal circumstance. That dislocated, much as it did for ourselves in a smaller way a few weeks ago, came down across ourselves from Norway. This one obviously was bigger and more manifest. But I will stress to you, it didn't affect all of the United States, even the western side. So we're talking about now California, Oregon, and Washington states. They were actually quite the opposite. In fact, yesterday in Los Angeles, they saw 28 degrees as everybody else was freezing. And Miami, 10 degrees. So you can see there's a huge difference and very, very unusual.
Yeah, and we're used to sort of getting their weather later on as it crosses the Atlantic, but this is different. This won't be a system that travels across to us.
No, it's going to go back where it belongs, back into the Arctic and basically dissipating. So luckily, no. I think what we're going to end up with, we're in the tram lines of the Atlantic now, so all of that's going to feed into us over the next few days. Yeah, and I'm looking at a radar just above my head here. Yeah. And the snow showers over Scotland, and you know that's probably where they're going to stay more or less today. So icy conditions up there, but for the most part, as we go towards the new year, it will ebb and flow to a certain degree. The winds will pick up to a degree as well. But I think we can call ourselves very lucky not to be associated with what's coming out of the United States in any shape or form. So lucky us.
Now, here's a question. When is snow not snow? Because apparently we did have a white Christmas, according to the definition. I'm from a vintage where it actually fall on the roof of the London Weather Centre for it to be called a white Christmas. I think it's slightly different nowadays.
Yeah, well, it's my job on both on Christmas Day and this morning and the day before for the Scandinavian countries to count the snowflakes. That's what my job is for the bookmakers. And there was a couple of really close calls, actually. But you're right, it's not just the London Weather Centre. In fact, it's not the London Weather Centre at all anymore. I think the Met Office call it a snowflake anywhere, which is a bit sort of, how can you put this? It's a bit
well, it's a bit snowflake.
Like. The vast majority of us, we wake up to the green Christmas, 99% of us, and it's the 1%. So yes, there was some snowflakes over the Highlands, and we're going to say Dublin, Glasgow, Edinburgh. They all got very, very close with snowflakes and or sleet. Not on the airports where it actually counts, where the bet is.
Right.
But within 10 miles away. So all the cities that we saw, with the exception of, and this is now globally, even the United States, we just talked about it, they didn't get any on the day itself. Montreal, Toronto, those are the two that stuck out for me. Places like Oslo, Stockholm, now green as we were.
Okay. So the key question, does that mean that the bookkeepers have won yet again?
The bookmakers, yes, it does. Yeah. For the most part, it actually does. Unless somebody put £1 million on those cities I've just mentioned, Toronto and Montreal, they're on a winner. They always are, aren't they? Come on, Matt. That's the way it goes.
Change it to sleet next year on an even bet, and you might be better off.
Matt, sleet counts. I should say to you, didn't even get that for the most part.
Each way in a sleety shower. There we go. Jim, as ever, thank you very much indeed for joining us and updating us on the position. Thank you. So you're watching GB News Live this Boxing Day. Still wishing you a Merry Christmas. And if you're shopping out and about for a bargain, experts say sales will be 4% down today on last year. Yes, that cost of living crisis is still biting. We'll be live in Leeds to update you on the position there. Back in a moment.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. Thanks for being with us this Boxing Day. Now, latest research suggesting shoppers will be spending almost 5% less in today's Boxing Day sales than they did this time last year. Barclaycard payments suggesting the average shopper spending almost £230. That's £20 less than this time last year, all being blamed, of course, on the cost of living crisis. Concerns, too, that the rail strikes could be putting people off from heading into the town and city centres to spend what cash they have. But let's see how some of those high streets are faring and join our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley in Leeds city centre. Oh, well, we can see people out and about behind you, Anna, but the key question is, are they spending?
Good afternoon, Mark. Yes, it has certainly picked up from this morning. It was very quiet this morning, but there's a lot more footfall in the city centre now. And yes, it does look like people are spending. They've got bags full of goods. We've seen lots of signs in the shop doorways that are open. There's up to 75% off in some stores. So people are saying they can really bag a bargain. And I went out speaking to shoppers, and this is what they had to say. So what brings you out today?
Just going out with my dad because we're going shopping.
And what kind of bargains are you looking for?
Just anything that's cheaper than it would be usually.
And what's brought you out into the shops rather than buying online to get these deals?
Because you got to pay postage for the deliveries and stuff, so it's just better to come out here.
So it's the Boxing Day sales. What's brought you out today?
Look, we're over visiting from Australia actually, so we are trying to get some bargains, and we have her little boy's birthday tomorrow, so we thought we'd be smart and do the shopping today.
And what have you picked up on? Have you seen many deals?
I think there's some deals. There's a bit less places open than I would have liked to have seen. We're used to it being a bit more open in Australia than it is here, so there's not quite the buzz we were expecting, but there are some really good deals, particularly like somewhere like Boots. There was a lot of really good sets that are like the Christmas gift packs.
Well, it's interesting, Anna, you've mentioned there with they're actually wanting to go to the shops rather than doing it online and see what's in the windows.
Yeah, that's what people have been saying. They've been saying they like to see the look and feel of items, and a lot of people as well have had Christmas presents, clothes that might not fit. So they've actually been bringing back items today and exchanging them and grabbing some bargains at the same time. It is worth noting as well, though, that lady there from Australia saying that it is a bit less of a buzz than she imagined. There are some major stores that haven't opened today. So Next has remained shut. Also Marks and Spencer and John Lewis, those big names, giving the staff the Boxing Day off today and opening tomorrow. So it might be that it's a bit busier tomorrow than today.
Yeah, and just seeing some of your pictures there, as you mentioned, 75% off, just seeing the sign 50% off. I guess for the shops, they just want to shift the stock and get the cash flow going.
That's it, yes, they want to clear all the old stock, get ready for the new year and get more items in. So yes, there are some bargains to be had if you want to go out and search for them and brave the cold. If you are coming out, wrap up, but there are certainly those deals to be had.
Yeah, Anna, with very sensibly your scarf and your gloves in Leeds. Thanks for updating us. We'll be back to you a little later now. Thank you. Plenty of your views coming in today, this Boxing Day. Thank you as ever. Most of them in response to the rail strikes, I'm afraid. Nick says, create a new rail service. Let's say goodbye to Mick Grinch and his members. Ron, meanwhile, we need reliability good enough for people who need to get in on time to keep their job, not just office people who can turn up late and call it flexi time, or on a bad day go back to bed and call it working from home. Slightly bitter aftertaste to that one. Graham, meanwhile, the unions say they're going to hold the country to ransom for the long haul. How long does it take to train up a train driver? Let's hire some more and fix the system. John, meanwhile, I don't use rail, but a lot of people would have used it today to see family members over Christmas. That's a good point, actually, John. So they've tried to stop families mixing together, which is sad, especially after the last 2 years that we have had with COVID. They'll shoot themselves in the foot because going forward, people will just find alternative travel methods and there won't be a rail service, so no jobs. Point Simon Calder's making, of course, that people will be reassessing their travel arrangements. Coming up here on GB News Live, traditional Boxing Day hunts taking place once more today. Labour now demanding stronger laws to tackle illegal hunts. But first, let's get an update on the news headlines with Bethany.
Mark, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 12:30. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. Jersey police have confirmed a 10th person has died as a result of the explosion at a block of flats on the island earlier this month. 73-year-old Kathleen McGuinness died in hospital on Christmas Day. The blast, which happened in the early hours of the 10th of December, destroyed the building in St Helier. Miss McGuinness lived in an adjacent building. An inquest into the deaths will open this Friday before being adjourned while the investigation continues. At least 30 people are believed to have died as a result of a severe Arctic freeze that continues to grip much of the US and Canada. Officials say the worst hit area is the city of Buffalo in New York State. Amid the snow, ice and freezing temperatures, thousands of flights have been cancelled and more than 150,000 homes are still without power. Russia's defence ministry claimed 3 of its military personnel have been killed at an airbase hundreds of miles from the front line of its war with Ukraine. Moscow alleged they were hit by falling debris from a Ukrainian drone that it says was shot down. It's the second attack on the airbase this month. It's understood the site stores long-range strategic bombers. Kyiv hasn't yet commented on the incident. And the UK's rail networks are effectively shut today as members of the RMT union hold a fresh round of strike action in a dispute over pay. Hundreds of trains usually run on Boxing Day, but they've all been cancelled and thousands of people have been forced to make alternative plans. The AA expects more than 15 million cars on UK roads today. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Don't go anywhere. Mark will be back in just a second.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to GB News Live. Let's bring you some breaking news we're getting now on the King's speech. And we're being told not only the most watched programme now on Christmas Day, the latest figures suggesting the combined audience standing at 10.7 million. That's the highest viewing figures for a traditional address, the festive address, this century, the 21st century. BBC just coming out with those figures. Well, of course, in his first Christmas speech, King Charles III sympathising with those families struggling with the cost of living and speaking about his anxiety and hardship experienced by many trying to pay their bills. Let's bring in our royal commentator and former royal correspondent, Jenny Bond, joining us now. Jenny, huge figures coming in with this, I think it was about 8 million originally, now the combined audience with online and so on, and reflecting perhaps that this is an occasion where many of us suddenly realised the Queen was no longer there.
Yeah, it obviously was the end of one era, beginning of the next, and this was a significant part of it. I must admit, you know, people always think I'm a raving monarchist. I'm not. I'm quite open to also. I'm very invested in politics, for example. However, I did stop to listen to the King's speech. It's not something I normally do on a Christmas day, but I stopped doing what I was doing, which was painting the dining room table in my messy overalls, because we weren't doing Christmas yesterday.
Merry Christmas, yeah.
With my paintbrush in hand, and I actually listened to every word he said. And, I was surprised at my reaction. I found it, I've been trying to search for the adjective, I think wholesome, very wholesome and valuable to sit and listen to someone who is apolitical, talk to us about our values in life, our values as a society and a community, and what we can do for one another. And I thought it's a valuable lesson because we don't hear that very often without spin. I mean, even in church, I don't go to church either, but in church, sermons obviously come from one religion or another, one point of view. And I think Charles really nailed it in being inclusive, philosophical, thoughtful. Yeah, I thought it was a great speech.
Yeah, you use that word apolitical. There are those people who are saying, well, actually, there were perhaps some pointed references, particularly to the emergency workers, the health workers, given the ongoing industrial action. And clearly, this is a king who has some empathy with public opinion and what's going on in the wider world.
Yes, but I mean, who wouldn't? Yes, you could say that was a pointed, if not political, reference. But good for him. And which one of us doesn't think that the health workers have done a fantastic job over the last few years and deserve a pat on the back? But I do agree that he could have not referenced them. He chose to do so. And again, good for him. And I particularly was struck by the inclusivity he showed, open inclusivity of all religions, and the images as well as his words were tailored to illustrate that.
Yes, talking about the importance of light, of course, and we remember his phrase originally about wanting to be a defender of faith rather than of the faith, and clearly that's a message that's coming through. But it was also the continuity, the very fact that this was recorded, of course, in St George's Chapel, as he referred to the resting place of his mama and his father.
Yeah, again, it was the imagery itself which told us of his sentimentality and his love, his affection for his mother and his father. The Queen actually gave one of her Christmas messages from St George's Chapel, so he wasn't actually breaking new ground, but it was very safe territory because we journalists went all poring over the backgrounds and which pictures of which members of the family were there or not there. So that was quite clever, I thought. And also there was a little message in the Christmas tree, which was adorned with sustainable decorations, all of them sustainable and recyclable, which I thought was quite clever.
We've just been seeing some of the archive pictures of the Sandringham, the family pictures where Meghan and Harry were attending. No reference whatsoever in either the speech or indeed, of course, that appearance at Sandringham on the Christmas Day walkabout.
Yeah, I think if he had mentioned them, then it would have obliterated everything else he said. That's all we'd be talking about. And I think they have pointedly taken the higher ground here. Harry and Meghan can say what they want, complain as much as they want publicly, but the royal family are not going to be goaded into a public response. And I think that is the most dignified way of going about it. We're just seeing them carrying on with their work, the core members of the royal family. Yes, it was quite clear that Harry and Meghan weren't even pictured, but then they're not working royals. That's their choice. So why should they be?
And last thought, Jenny, the year ahead, I mean, do you think that approach will carry on? Never complain, never explain, keep calm and carry on, all those other things that we sort of associate with this royal approach?
Yeah, I think it will. Obviously, we've got the book coming out very soon, Harry's book. But I think they have shown that this is a sound way of going about it because we, the media, have simply focused on the royal family's work. We haven't been able to, we've not. Basically, they know that if they say anything at all, it gives the story legs, and they don't want that.
And we make their life difficult for them, indeed. Jenny, thank you very much indeed. Hope your table's dried off and you can actually sit down and have something to eat. It good. Great to have you with us on GB News. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you very much indeed. So the presents have been opened, the turkey demolished and more than a glass or two of fizz perhaps sunk. So what better than to throw yourself half naked into a maelstrom of freezing water with several hundred other like-minded souls? Yes. Some Boxing Day traditions are a little difficult to fathom, if you pardon the pun, but across Britain's coast, Santa's sea swimmers have been taking to the waves once more. Now, research suggests, apparently, that swimming in the freezing December seas does have a variety of health benefits, although also, of course, a warning it can induce hypothermia, and a sea swim should be done safely. But let's head to West Wales now, and the magical beaches of Tenby, where the Boxing Day swim is back on for the first time since COVID, celebrating, therefore, its 50th anniversary. Joining us at, I think, the North Beach. Oh, no, you're actually in the warm. Sam is back in the warm, the mayor of Tenby and a passionate sea swimmer. So therefore, the deed has been done, is that right?
Yes, good afternoon, it has. It was at 11:30 this morning. the first one in 3 years, obviously due to the pandemic, and we are now celebrated the 50th, which should have been 2 years ago.
Yeah, so you've started in 1970, so you've clocked it up because you've had to sort of make way for COVID restrictions, which were pretty onerous down in Wales, particularly the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's right. It was just so wonderful to have the opportunity. This is my third year as mayor. I came in as mayor in the pandemic, and obviously we weren't able to do it the past couple of years, but we really have come back with a bang. It was absolutely incredible. I think we broke the records as well today. There was easily about 1,000 people went in, and easily about another 4,000 to 5,000 spectators. The atmosphere was incredible. Yeah, the weather was fantastic. You know, a lot of us, as I said, are sea swimmers, so you know, we went in as we normally would.
I was going to ask you. I mean, do you have to sort of get in training with this? Because obviously it can be a little dangerous if you're not used to the conditions, and you know, hypothermia, shock to the system, and so on. So you've got to do it safely.
Yeah, joking aside, you do. I only started, if I'm honest, in May of this year, which is a good time to start. They always say to start in the spring, summer, when obviously the temperatures are rising. This time of year, they do say obviously take special care, and really, if you can, check the sea temperatures. It's supposed to be a minute per centigrade, so don't go over that, otherwise you could be in trouble. But it's literally in and out. But it's fantastic. It's good for your mental health. It's just good for your general health, really.
And is it actually quite good because it's a shared event as well? You know, the towns and the coastal resorts come together for this on both Christmas Day and Boxing Day.
Yeah, I think because the whole point is to support local charities. Again, today, you know, it's split. All the monies get split, and it's kept in-house, as I'd say, within Tenby itself. So all the charities that may have been struggling as well the past couple of years, because as we all know, we haven't been able to do that and support all these local places. It's an incredible thing to know today that, you know, the buckets were really filling up. They've been able to support Tenby RLNI, Haval, which is to do with Mind, which is great, you know, and just to get back to some sort of normality. Please excuse the way I look. I don't normally look like this. I'm covered in gold because the theme today was gold for 50.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I thought maybe you were just doing it for us for Boxing Day and showing off a bit, you know.
No, I don't normally look like this. But no, seriously, some of the fancy dresses, they're people who come down every year. You know, they like to come for the day. They like to come down for the holidays to stay. I was speaking to people from all over the world that come here especially for it, which is incredible.
Yeah, I've got very fond memories of childhood holidays, sat next to the Goscar Rock, coming down from Llanelli on the train. So, wonderful to see it back in action, and that everyone is safe as well and warming up now after that event. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Sam, and diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Diolch, thank you.
Now, Merseyside, I'm afraid, is trying to come to terms with an awful, tragic shooting of a young woman at a pub on Christmas Eve. Police now confirming that the 26-year-old victim was not deliberately targeted, but suffered a gunshot wound to the head and then later died in hospital. Well, North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper sent us this report from the scene.
A murder investigation is well underway here now after a gun attack at this pub in Wallasey on Christmas Eve. So far, we know that a 26-year-old woman was killed and several others were injured. We also know that Merseyside police believe she was not the intended victim of the attack. They think she was simply here enjoying the festivities with friends and family, and she was caught in the crossfire of the gunman. She was taken to Arrow Park Hospital to receive treatment, where she later sadly died from her injuries. Now, this attack comes just 4 months after a spate of gun violence in the Merseyside region that saw 9-year-old schoolgirl Olivia Pratt-Corbell shot and killed in her family home. So Merseyside police will be keen to find the culprit behind this attack as soon as possible.
And the latest we're getting is police say they want to try and trace a Mercedes A-Class or similar dark car that was seen leaving the car park and in terms of those hurt, one person, a man, still in hospital, critically hurt. So we'll update you as we get more on that situation from Merseyside Police. Now, for many, fox hunting is much part of a Boxing Day as the leftover turkeys and the 2005 hunting ban doing little to dampen huntsmen's enthusiasm, it seems. Now, by law, the hunt must now use drag trails instead of actually hunting the animal. But latest figures released today reveal many are apparently flouting the law. Little being done to stop them, it seems. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody has been talking to those on both sides of the debate.
The traditional Boxing Day meet, horses, hounds, and the thrill of the chase.
We've had to change what we do after the Hunting Act came in. It isn't exactly the same, but it's as close as we can make it. We lay our lines, we chase those lines. I mean, there are clearly people who don't want us to do what we're doing, and given that we are hunting within the law, there can only be one conclusion, and that is that this isn't an issue of hunting for them.
But the League Against Cruel Sports says many hunts haven't adapted. They're doing exactly what they used to. They've compiled 300 reports of suspected illegal hunting.
The Hunting Act is there, but with witnesses seeing foxes still being chased, in some instances still being killed, both of which are illegal under the Hunting Act, but exemptions in the law making it terribly difficult to actually bring a prosecution, certainly a successful one.
Concerns too about public safety. Pip Donovan is from Action Against Fox Hunting. She's been campaigning alongside other groups, Grantham Against Blood Sports and Protect the Wild, to stop their local hunt in Somerset from gathering in town on safety grounds. They say the hunt in Chard hasn't properly applied for a road closure.
The Somerset County Council said to us, oh, well, it's too late to do anything. Too late to do anything to get the roads closed properly, bearing in mind that road closure is about public safety. It's not about being bloody minded about the hunts. It's about public safety. It's about making sure that the public are not put at risk.
Somerset Council have admitted they made mistakes. They told GB News, "We can confirm that the council is not using any powers to close roads for hunt meets this year. We have spoken to the hunts identified by Action Against Fox Hunting, and 2 have confirmed they will meet on private land, and the 3rd will not be closing the road. We apologise for any misunderstandings in relation to this matter." Action Against Fox Hunting have drawn blood. It's now a battle of wills, with both sides hunting for loopholes.
It's the spirit of the law we want to see being adhered to. So we want changes made to ensure that that proper spirit, that let's protect British wildlife, is actually in force. And that's what we'll be calling on whichever government is in after the next general election to do for us.
If opinion polls are to be believed, the party that introduced the ban could be picking up the scent in a year or 2.
Look at all this. This tells you the real truth of the matter. Hunting is very much part of England, old England and modern England, and we're here to stay.
Here now, but for how much longer? Jeff Moody, GB News.
Now, let's update you on the sport because, yes, the footy is back, Premier League back in action, and within the last 15 minutes, we can tell you in the first game since the World Cup, Brentford taking on Spurs. Spurs are 1 down. Yes, an early goal for midfielder Vitaly Janelt scoring for the Bees. Boxing Day, of course, traditionally a huge day for sport, particularly for football. Also a big day for horse racing. Joining us in the studio, as ever, our sports expert, Aidan McGee. Aidan, very good Boxing Day welcome to you. Kane is on the pitch, because there was a big question about all these World Cup players. Would they be back in action for the Premier League?
It doesn't surprise me that Harry Kane is on the pitch. I mean, he's a quick healer anyway when it comes to injury. I mean, he's not actually injured. He may be slightly mentally disturbed by the fact that he missed that penalty 2 weeks ago. But, you know, it's not the same for every player. I mean, Antonio Conte revived memories or evoked memories of 1994 yesterday. He was talking about in his press conference. He was talking about being on the pitch and in the dugout and he was a substitute when Italy played in Brazil in the 1994 World Cup. And his great teammate, Roberto Baggio, who you remember, one of the top players in the world at the time, blazed the ball over the bar to lose the World Cup to Brazil in that final. And he said he actually felt in his autobiography when he detailed this and he documented what his experience was, he said that he felt part of his inside had died because of the impact it would have on the rest of the country. Now, he was asked how to compare that, Conte, to the experience with Harry Kane, and he said Harry Kane's a different kind of personality. He said that he will park it, he'll move on. So no surprise at all to me that he's on the pitch today. If I was in his position, I want to move on as quickly as possible, and if that's scoring the equaliser at Brentford later today, what better way to do it?
But there were quite a few people during the World Cup saying Kane looked a bit leggy, that he looked tired, and clearly, in the middle of a long season, perhaps the World Cup wasn't best placed at that particular point of it. And a lot of them, the managers, saying, we are resting these World Cup players because, they've trained, they've been in quite a lot of heat out there, so it is going to drain them to a degree.
Without doubt. It's the travelling as well. It's also the emotion of going deep into the tournament and maybe failing at the last, as we're talking about with England players, even France players, or even some of the Croatian players, and also the ones who won. There will be Argentina players there who...
McAllister's not playing for Brighton, is he?
No, he's not. But it won't be long before they're back in because they're fit, and some of them will come off a natural high from winning the World Cup and then going and take it into their Premier League form. You can't really predict, but this is a part of the endurance test, Mark, because we've never seen, apart from the disruption of 2 years ago, which was impromptu, and that was over a period of a couple of months. This one was, it's 5-6 weeks, but they've been playing in that time as well, a lot of these players. Other ones have been at home and resting. That doesn't necessarily make them match fit, though.
But is it sort of restarting the Premier League now? And
that means you will see. Most of the games haven't kicked off yet, and there are some tomorrow as well. But you'll see freak results, I would imagine, because that's what you see on the opening day of the
Crystal
season.
Palace versus Fulham. That's Southampton, Brighton, South Coast Derby.
South Coast Derby. Yeah, exactly. Arsenal, West Ham tonight. Yes, West Ham. People
is
saying,
it 8 o'clock? It
is.
That's
but saying West Ham have lost 4 of the last 5 games. Well, yeah, but that was like 2-3 months ago now. Yeah. So does it matter? I remember when Arsenal suffered back in the 90s. They lost at home to Norwich one day in one season in 92, 93. Because although they're overwhelming favourites, we saw freak results. Norwich ended up finishing 3rd that season, but a couple of years later, or a year or so later, Coventry went to Highbury on the opening day of the season, won 4-0. You get freak results, and so you might see some of those today because you don't know where the players are in terms of their fitness. It's more easy to measure these days because they're tested left, right, and centre, made sure they're ready for it. Some have been playing, some haven't. Some have got something to prove. Even in a normal season, halfway through the season, you see a drop-off. You see a drop-off after Christmas anyway.
Or they want to show, look, I'm still here and I'm still capable.
Some of them are playing for their futures. The same rules apply. And so look at the Championship, for example, 46 games. Wow. I don't know where they're going to... QPR are kicking off tonight, 5:15 at Cardiff. We've played, 21 games or something? Or maybe just over halfway through the season, perhaps. But we're not even considering that weather might impact this calendar in January and February. We could have some extreme weather.
Cold snap,
and then you've got the cup competitions. And, of course, you mentioned Tottenham just a minute ago. They're in Champions League, along with a lot of these other clubs who are in Europa League. It's a hell of a schedule.
No, it's not just the footy. We've got horse racing called Big Day, Boxing Day for...
Yeah, that's right. I worked out, 11 meetings today.
Wow.
And one of my jobs in my previous role was to go and actually check the turf. Check the ground at Kempton, with King George V. I was talking to one of our...
So did you have a little trowel then?
No, it was the groundsman. It was the groundsman who did it. But Phil Edwards, who's one of our producers back there, who's a reporter at Sky with me back then, he said he actually reminded me that the groundsman would actually have some kind of thermometer device to dig into the ground. We'd all be filming this live. Someone like you would be watching it with interest from your anchoring position, and he'd dig it in and he'd be able to tell what the going was like. But he said, you take it out, but he said, look, this is 6 o'clock in the morning, Aidan. The race isn't until 3 o'clock. Yeah. It could be completely different. He'd be able to predict using the normal weather forecasting equipment online and elsewhere and through the Met Office whether racegoers should bring brollies or whatever. But the King George V is the big one. My tip is Venetia Williams, long press. I don't know, I can't remember what time he's...
Is that because you tested the turf as well?
my tips were useless whether I checked the turf or not.
And don't bet on the weather either, as we heard a little earlier from our Met man. But there we go. Excellent. We'll see you a bit later for more. But let's reflect that it is Boxing Day, of course, and we'll have more on all the travel chaos. The train strikes continue to disrupt the network, and we're being told 15 million on the roads as well as you're trying to get to those sales. Boxing Day weather next.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking sunny and blustery with showers, often wintry in the north. Let's take a look at the details. A mixture of sunshine and showers across the southwest of England. These showers blustery and heavy at times, feeling a little colder than recent days with temperatures closer to average. Across southeast, it's dry and bright with plenty of prolonged sunshine while breezy on the coast. Blustery showers will move eastwards across Wales, these occasionally turning windy wintry over high ground with brighter spells at times. A generally dry day for most across the Midlands with plenty of prolonged sunshine. Some scattered blustery showers may affect western and northern areas for a time. Staying dry for most across northeast England with plenty of sunshine, although at risk of a few wintry showers over high ground. Temperatures struggling to reach above 4 or 5 Celsius. Wintry showers will continue to move eastwards across most of Scotland, with snow falling over any high ground. Breezy, particularly on the coast. Northern Ireland will see a day of sunshine and showers, these turning wintry over high ground at times. Breezy and feeling colder than recent days. Showers will continue to affect western areas, these often wintry in the north, spreading east later. And that is how your weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
It's just gone 1 o'clock. You're with GB News Live with me, Mark Longhurst. And coming up this hour of Boxing Day for you, Britain's railways, yes, they're at a standstill once again as RMT members stage yet another round of industrial action. It's meant huge disruption for those trying to visit families, heading out for a drink or looking to grab a bargain in the Boxing Day sales. Indeed, what does it mean for the hospitality sector, already struggling because of the cost of living crisis? We're joined by a bar owner who says the sector is just having too hard a time of it. And if you do manage to navigate all the festive hazards and you get to the shops, you could be in for a bargain. Yes, those shops are trying to shift unsold stock to get their cash flow moving, rather. New data claiming shoppers, though, will be spending almost 5% less this Boxing Day as that cost of living crisis bites. How clean is your house? Tidying up guru Aggie Mackenzie having top tips for us to restore order after all that Christmas chaos. And let us know what you're up to today and how you're coping this Christmas. Email us, as ever, gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us @gbnews. Let's get the news headlines now with Bethany.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 1. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. Jersey police have confirmed a 10th person has died as a result of the explosion at a block of flats on the island earlier this month. 73-year-old Kathy McGuinness died in hospital on Christmas Day. The blast, which happened in the early hours of the 10th of December, destroyed the building in St Helier. Miss McGuinness lived in an adjacent building. An inquest into the deaths will open this Friday before being adjourned while the investigation continues. At least 30 people are believed to have died as a result of a severe Arctic freeze that continues to grip much of the US and Canada. Officials say the worst hit area is the city of Buffalo in New York State. Amid the snow, ice and freezing temperatures, thousands of flights have been cancelled and more than 150,000 homes are still without power. Russia's defence ministry claimed 3 of its military personnel have been killed at an airbase hundreds of miles from the front line of its war with Ukraine. Moscow alleged they were hit by falling debris from a Ukrainian drone that it says was shot down. The governor says no aircraft was damaged at the base in Russia's southeast. It's the second attack on the military site this month. It's understood it stores long-range strategic bombers. Kyiv has not yet commented on the incident. The UK's rail networks are at a standstill today as members of the RMT union hold a fresh round of strike action in a dispute over pay. Hundreds of trains usually run on Boxing Day, but they've all been cancelled and thousands of people have been forced to make alternative plans. The AA expects more than 15 million cars on UK roads today. 20,000 Eurostar passengers have also been affected as it has dropped all of its services which run to London, Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam. Travel expert Simon Calder says the strikes are destroying the railways.
1 million people like me who don't have a car or access to a car who have to travel by rail. And to be told, oh, come back middle of January isn't good enough. The rail unions, I think, have completely misjudged it. The government has completely misjudged it. The passenger and the taxpayer are caught up in this middle of this kind of ideological row, and it's absolutely all it's doing is destroying the railways.
Police say a shooting at a pub in Liverpool on Christmas Eve in which 1 woman was killed was not a targeted attack. The search is continuing for the gunman who killed the 26-year-old woman in Wallasey on Merseyside. She was taken to hospital but later died. 4 men were also taken to hospital with gunshot injuries. The UK Health Security Agency will stop publishing COVID-19 data early next month. The chief data scientist says it's no longer necessary as the country is now living with the disease, but that COVID will still be monitored. Data had been published weekly during the peak of the pandemic and every 2 weeks since April this year. And shoppers are expected to spend less in the sales today as the cost of living continues to rise. New research by Barclaycard Payments found the average customer intends to buy around £229 worth of items in the post-Christmas sales. That's 4% less compared to last year. The study also found that a number of shoppers expect to turn to reselling sites to buy items or to offload unwanted gifts. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's get back to Mark.
Bethany, thanks very much indeed. So, happy Boxing Day. Or is it? The rail network at a standstill this afternoon. Rail workers staging yet another day of industrial action in their ongoing dispute over pay and conditions. Any hopes of those travelling to see family and friends or going to the Boxing Day sales by train, at least, out of the question. Let's get a sense of the public mood about what's happening. We can cross live to Birmingham now. Our reporter Theo Chicombo, who's there at New Street Station. And Theo, one or two people have been climbing those steps to nowhere, trying to find out if the trains are running. But at least, I guess, one or two people are out shopping, at least.
Yeah, plenty of people out shopping, but there are a few surprise faces when they do arrive here in New Street, especially those who have missed the announcement that there are no trains running. I spoke to a few people earlier say, oh, I just thought I'd just turn up and find a train, but unfortunately they're not running today. It's another day of RMT union strikes, the third day, which started a few days ago over this Christmas period. Generally today, there aren't many trains which do run across the country. ScotRail is a company which normally does run today, but they have no services at all. And we do normally see maintenance workers as well, but again, they aren't working today. So the station is completely closed. It's a picture that's happening across the country. And it's set to be like this for the next few weeks. We do know just after New Year, ASLEF Union, which represents train drivers, they'll be going on strike on the 5th. So this is also in line with what's happening with RMT Union, which represents lots of rail workers who work in the industry.
And what's the picture on the roads, though? We've got the AA warning some 15 million people expected on the roads. I mean, is Birmingham snarled up at the moment? People trying to get in to do their shopping on Boxing Day sales?
Yeah, so around the main road, the main ring roads as well, there's a lot of slow traffic, people trying to get into the city centre. And I imagine this is going to be the same across the country, as you just said there. Around 15 million people expected to be making journeys across the UK today. So that's the alternative to travel. And tomorrow, trains will be running again, but it depends on where you live. The first train we understand is going to be from Sheffield around 10 to 9 in the morning. Southern Eastern saying their trains won't be running until around midday. So again, it depends where you live, and the advice from the Network Rail chief is to check before you travel, before you head over across the country as well, if you need to.
Yes, and of course more in the pipeline for the new year as well. Theo in Birmingham, thank you for that. But let's reflect on the various problems people have been experiencing. Anne Milligan is one person who had to get an overnight National Express coach because of the strike on the railways. She's been telling us at UK's busiest bus station, London Victoria, what she thinks about the striking workers.
Real problem, this train strike, real big problem. And they do get paid okay, but the issues like security of there should be guards on trains. I spend quite a lot of time up into kind of West Scotland, and if you go on trains there without a guard, you've got big trouble. And if they could only concentrate on these other things and maybe make tickets not possible to buy online so easily, so if you could rock up on the day and buy a ticket for £10 to go on a train, it's all become a bit of a problem, hasn't it, really? The people visiting the UK are amazed and shocked by our railways here. They're very, very shocked by what's going on here. So, yeah, have a rethink. Like the buses, there's going to be a £2 fare, flat fare for a bus. Make it possible to rock up to a train station, buy a ticket from a travel clerk behind the window, proper old-fashioned way, affordable day out, and yeah, trains are great, but this is a bit of a mess, isn't it, really?
But she's still smiling, which is great. Anne Milligan suggesting maybe let's head back to the days you could, as you say, rock up, just get a ticket and travel for a decent price. There's the thought. It's enough to turn you to drink, isn't it? Restaurant owner Andy Jones joining us in the studio now. As the hospitality industry facing a direct impact on all this, because, of course, people can't get anywhere by public transport, and if they're going by car, they can't drink. It's a double whammy, isn't it?
The hospitality sector is a mess. It's been a mess since the lockdowns. Now, I don't know if you agreed or disagreed with the lockdowns, but the reason why we're in these holes, the reason why this industry is struggling, for me, is a direct result of these lockdowns. There's so many bills that mounted up while we were closed for 8 months over the course of 2 and a bit years. We can't get ourselves out of it. And all these things that are coming on top now, railway strikes, they had a big impact on the week of the 14th, 15th, 16th in December when we saw huge numbers drop, when you'd expect to be really busy that week.
Well, people start their shopping and maybe going for a lunch when they
Christmas parties, people that live out of London that have to that rely on the railways to get home after their Christmas parties. People were cancelling left, right, and centre. Numbers were dropping. It's really hard. The industry's terrible at the moment.
Yeah, I mean they call this the golden quarter, when people in many industries, particularly hospitality, make the money to keep going for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And you were basically really hoping for this uplift to fill the coffers from what you've lost the last 2 years.
Well, filling the coffers from what you've lost the past few years, that's a long-term project.
Right, OK.
The biggest issue, and this hasn't been touched on a lot, the furlough scheme was amazing for the workers in hospitality and a lot of workers in different sectors, but you know, I'm hospitality. We had to pick up the PAYE bill. The businesses that were closed, not taking any money, still had to pick up the PAYE bill. Mine was
national insurance and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So furlough money was coming from the government. We still had to pay the PAYE when we were taking no money ourselves. How can you be expected to pay £8,000, £9,000, £10,000 a month in PAYE, national insurance, when you're not taking any money? So everything's been built up. A lot of people are operating on debt now in the hospitality industry. It's really tough.
Well, at a time when the sort of cost of doing that, with interest rates going up, is ever more onerous.
It's the cost of everything. It's the cost of supplies. Everything's gone up.
Can you see any light at the tunnel? Because, again, we're being told stoppages in the new year, and all the unions saying we've got mandates to do this for months to come. I mean, at what stage do you in the business sector and the hospitality sector say we just can't do this anymore?
I think you'll see a bloodbath in the new year. I think hospitality owners are going to give up. You know, you're working with really tight margins at a good time. At a good time in hospitality, you're working on tight margins. If you put in the cost of living crisis, you know, where you're paying your staff even more, I think probably a lot of London waiting staff at the moment, serving tables, £12 to £15, £16 an hour. That's, you know, that going forward, that's a cost that businesses cannot continue to pay going forward. The cost of wholesale food has gone through the roof. Everything is tightening those margins, and people are going to give up. People are going to give up because I've dedicated 10 years to my life to my own business, and you're like, when is this going to end?
Yeah. A lot of people saying, you know, London particularly seems very busy. People have been going out, they seem to be shopping and spending and going to pubs and restaurants. But is it the case that when they get there, they're just not spending as much as they used to?
The spend is lower. Our wholesale is higher. Our rents have gone up. Our rates have gone up. People say, oh, London's this like golden place where everyone's spending money. That's fine.
But you're running to stand still.
My rent is £138,000 a year on 4,000 square feet. So if you've got to take £25,000 a week to make a pound, no one wants to go into that industry. It's really, really tough at the moment. And it's like, you know, I'm career hospitality. My parents were career hospitality from the 70s. They found it really tough up in North Wales. Now, can you imagine how hard it is in London at times like
the
this?
Additional costs. Yeah.
It's just everything mounted up.
So were you open yesterday on Christmas Day?
We weren't, no.
Right, because basically, I guess having to pay your staff and energy costs and everything else, it's just not worth it.
There's loads of reasons. We always close on the 22nd or the 23rd because the trade just isn't there for us. And the 3 weeks prior to that, you have a really good few weeks. We had 2.5 really good weeks, and that's going to set you up into January. I don't even want to think about January at the moment. I'm focusing on spending time with my wife and my kids, and then New Year's Eve comes, we'll open, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Right. But do you think there's room for another government initiative of some kind? I mean, the sort of jury's out on whether furlough actually cost the country or whether it actually put a vital injection into the economy.
I don't think the jury's out if furlough cost the country. I think furlough cost the country massively, absolutely. If you believed in the lockdowns or not, I think a lot of the problems that we have as a country is because of that vast amount of spending during the lockdowns. 2.5 years of overspending for the government when they didn't have the money in the first place.
Yeah, although the counter-argument is a lot of businesses would have gone bust without that injection.
A lot of businesses are going to go bust anyway, OK? There's always collateral damage in every single industry, right? And the lockdowns have just heightened that, especially in the industry that I'm in. So...
What do you make then of the critics that say, well, actually, a lot of these businesses should go bust anyway because they're not being run properly, and that this is going to sort of get the dead wood out of the system?
Well, OK, so you're just going to be left there with vast amount of places just sat empty. Landlords then don't have the money to pay their debts to the bank. You know, where does this end? It keeps on going up and up and up and up the tree. There has to be traders. There has to be traders in every single industry. If you're a small restaurant with 30 seats, if you're a medium-sized restaurant like me with 150 seats, there has to be traders in these spaces, or it's just going to go up and up and up the food chain. And where does that end?
Or is it just we get the chain restaurants that we're familiar with?
So
same restaurant
every
in
single town is going to look the same. It's boring. It's boring, you know. And then look at what happens to the profits of their companies. Are they registered here? Are they putting back into the coffers of this country like all the independent businesses are doing that are going bust? There's a knock-on effect, and you have to look at this industry, you know, the whole way around. Nobody wants to go into hospitality at the moment. If someone came to me and said, you know, oh, well, people do come to me and they say, I want to open my own restaurant. I said, why? Don't do it. You're just going to be plunged into debt. You're going to have to put a personal guarantee on any lease that you take now. Therefore, so if you sign a 10-year lease at £100,000 a year and you go bust after a year, landlord's got you on the hook for £900,000.
And business rates, I guess, as well, where you're not seeing any relief at the moment.
Business rates are tough, OK? My business rates are about just short of £1,000 a week to the council where I reside. If you add that on top of everything else, and what service do I get for that? I don't get my bins taken. I don't get any relief from the council in any way, shape or form. I have to apply to the council for everything still. I don't get any grace with the council if I want to open later. I don't get any grace with the council for anything if I want to open more of an outside space. I don't have these things. It's a business rate that's going to where? It's going to where? How is my £50,000 a year affecting me in a positive way? It's not. Everything is adverse when you're paying these business rates. Yes, I know we have to pay something because the services have to continue around Hackney where we are, but it's an extreme amount of money to get not much
Very
back.
little back, yeah. So what do you need at the very least? I mean, obviously energy costs is one of the main issues you're looking at. Obviously you need a cap to have some certainty.
OK, capped energy costs like domestic residents would be lovely, but there's a few things. When you purchase food wholesale, there's no VAT on that food.
Right.
But I have to pay VAT on my sales. So there's a negative imbalance as to where I'm taking money, but I'm not having anything shaved off my VAT, OK?
Right.
So why can't food-led industries pay a lower rate of VAT? That would keep a lot of people in business. Even if they drop that to 15%, hospitality sector's a huge industry, right? And I know that money's going to have to come back somewhere. But this country isn't working. This current government isn't working well for the country. So they have to get creative.
Yeah, so the argument would be you'd make that money up in increased sales if obviously
you wouldn't pay so much VAT back. So say if your VAT bill every quarter is £80,000, imagine what it would do to the business if that was only £65,000.
But the government would get the VAT eventually because the more business would be done.
Because you'd be open longer. Absolutely, you could give... OK, so if we go around the vicious circle, you make more money, you can pay the staff better, you give a better service, more people will come, you take more sales.
Yeah.
And therefore you pay the government back. But this is like loads of things. We've spoken about the NHS. You're talking about running a business correctly, running a business efficiently. We have to look at this. If you're a one-man band, you have to run your business efficiently. If you are the biggest employer in the country, you have to run your business efficiently. And in so many sectors at the moment, public, private, things aren't being run efficiently. I'm not saying I run my business efficiently at all. I'm sure there's loads of things I could do, right? But things aren't being run efficiently, and it's happening with the rail strikes, the nurses' strikes. It's a real problem.
I was going to say Happy New Year. Well, we hope it will be, but...
we'll see.
Yeah, OK. Well, thank you very much, and come back in and let us know how you're getting on. We'll update people as well, and Merry Christmas to all your staff.
Thank you very much, and to you.
Cheers. Well, there we go. Let's get your views too on what the state of play is with the rail strikes, particularly. Adam's been in touch to say the government needs to take a leaf out of Ronald Reagan's book when dealing with the striking air traffic controllers. He literally sacked them all. If we did the same with Mick Lynch's members, they would beg for their jobs back at 30% less salary. I think that might be difficult to get through the negotiations. Rob saying driverless trains, that's the future. That's all he's got to say. Steve, AI is coming for all these jobs. No more strikes then. They would be happy with what they're given. And Daisy finally saying railway workers are being manipulated by the unions. They live on strike pay whilst the union leaders are on full pay. Keep your views coming as ever, particularly if you've got the contrary viewpoint, and we'll reflect those a little later. Also coming up here on GB News Live, the shoppers. Well, they're out for a bargain with the Boxing Day sales, but experts saying down 4% at least on last year as the cost of living crisis bites. We'll be live in Leeds for the picture there. Back in a moment. And a look at the weather for you now. Well, we can tell you that the UK is looking chilly out there. Mix of clear spells and scattered showers. In detail, the southwest of England this evening, seeing a mixture of heavy showers and then clear spells. Temperatures around 5 to 7 Celsius for most, staying breezy along the coast, adding to the wind chill. Skies clearing then this evening for many parts in the southeast of England. Most places dry, though. Perhaps a few light showers in the east. A rather chilly evening then further across to the west in Wales, with a scattering of showers there, and breezy along the coast there particularly. Temperatures around 4 to 6 Celsius. Plenty of dry weather Boxing Day evening for the Midlands, but the risk too of some showers. Rather cold again, temperatures there down to 3 or 4 degrees. Winds staying light though. Rather breezy this evening then across northern parts of England, and further blustery showers coming in. The showers indeed falling as sleet or snow over the higher ground at times, so on the cold and icy side for many. A blustery Boxing Day evening for Scotland. Further sleet and snow, I'm afraid. Some tricky travelling conditions as a result developing at times, with the ice on untreated surfaces particularly. Temperatures around freezing. An icy evening to come too for Northern Ireland. Sleet and snow showers add to the mix, turning cold, with temperatures tumbling towards freezing and the winds blustery around the coast. So a cold and frosty night for many. Ice in the north, mild, wet, windy weather moving into the west later on. That's how it's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
And welcome back to GB News Live this Boxing Day. Now, December, the most important month of the year for most UK retailers, as we've just been discussing with Andy there. But data from the ONS Retail Sales Index showing November actually makes up more than a fifth of this year's sales. So if you received money as a Christmas gift, you expect maybe to bag a Boxing Day bargain with the sales. But this year, a bit different it seems, because the value of goods purchased during the Boxing Day sales predicted to be nearly 10% lower than last year. Let's get the latest. Our Yorkshire reporter Anna Riley live for us on the High Street in Leeds. And plenty of people are about there with shopping bags, it seems, Anna. But, of course, we don't know exactly how much they're spending at the moment.
No, we don't, but there's certainly the footfall here. There wasn't first thing in the morning. It has taken a bit of time to pick up, but throughout the day we are certainly seeing much more people coming and shopping. A lot of young people that are out spending their Christmas Day money. And yeah, the footfall's here, but how much they're spending, we don't know. And this is what some people who are out shopping had to say to me. So what brings you out today?
Just going out with my dad because we're going shopping.
And what kind of bargains are you looking for?
Just anything that's cheaper than it would be usually.
And what's brought you out into the shops rather than buying online to get these deals?
Because you got to pay postage for the deliveries and stuff, so it's just better to come out here.
So it's the Boxing Day sales. What's brought you out today?
Look, we're over visiting from Australia actually, so we are trying to get some bargains, and we have her little boy's birthday tomorrow, so we thought we'd be smart and do the shopping today.
And what have you picked up on? Have you seen many deals?
I think there's some deals. There's a bit less places open than I would have liked to have seen. We're used to it being a bit more open in Australia than it is here, so there's not quite the buzz we were expecting, but there are some really good deals, particularly like somewhere like Boots. There was a lot of really good sets that are like the Christmas gift packs that were very cheap.
And of course, there's a central question, Anna, about the shops on the high street and how they're going to compete with the online shopping that people get. I mean, people are still wanting to go in and see what's in the window and go through the door.
Yeah, that's the feedback that I've been having. People want to touch and feel those items and see what exactly there is, and they've been telling me that they did look online. One example, there was a little bit of a queue actually at Zara this morning. They said they'd looked online for deals and couldn't find the right one, so they'd actually come in store and they'd found better deals actually in the store. And I think that might be a little bit reflective as well of people just watching the purse strings a little bit more with the cost of living. They want to get the best that they can from the money, and they're using shopping as a bit of an experience as well, to go out and buy the items that they want, make it a bit more of an experience and really get the best deal for their money.
Yeah, and it does seem that there are bargains. I mean, lots of shops going with 50% discount, some even up to 75%. And I guess a lot of them are saying they just need to get the stock moved just to get cash flow through going through the business.
Yeah, that's exactly part of it. I don't think there's been, according to the British Retail Consortium, there's not been that much of a pre-Christmas sales in the shops, you know, so they are wanting to clear that stock, and that's what they're doing, that's what these sales are for. So if you're around today, and it might pick up a little bit tomorrow as well, we know that shops like Next, Marks and Spencer's and John Lewis, they're opening tomorrow rather than today, so that those deals are out there, and yes, the stores are certainly want to clear that stock ready for the new year.
Yeah, and the festive music still blaring out. Anna in Leeds, thanks for joining us. We'll be back to you a little later. Thank you very much indeed. Well, coming up, more serious matters. We're reflecting that at least 38 people now have died as the severe Arctic freeze continues across the US and Canada. We'll be live there for the latest, but let's get an update to the news headlines with Bethany.
Mark, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1:30. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. Jersey police have confirmed a 10th person has died as a result of the explosion at a block of flats on the island earlier this month. 73-year-old Kathleen McGuinness died in hospital on Christmas Day. The blast, which happened in the early hours of the 10th of December, destroyed the building in St Helier. Miss McGuinness lived in an adjacent building. An inquest into the deaths will open this Friday before being adjourned while the investigation continues. At least 38 people are believed to have died as a result of the severe Arctic freeze that continues to grip much of the US and Canada. Officials say the worst hit area is the city of Buffalo in New York State. Amid the snow, ice and freezing temperatures, thousands of flights have been cancelled and more than 150,000 homes are still without power. Russia's defence ministry claimed 3 of its military personnel have been killed at an airbase hundreds of miles from the front line of its war with Ukraine. Moscow alleged they were hit by falling debris from a Ukrainian drone that it says was shot down. It's the second attack on the airbase this month. It's understood the site stores long-range strategic bombers. Kiev hasn't yet commented on the incident. And the UK's rail networks are at a standstill today as members of the RMT union hold a fresh round of strike action in a dispute over pay. Hundreds of trains usually run on Boxing Day, but they've all been cancelled. The AA is warning of traffic jams as they expect more than 15 million cars on UK roads today, and 20,000 Eurostar passengers have been forced to make alternative plans as it's cancelled all services across Europe. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. We'll get back to Mark in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to GB News Live this Boxing Day, and let's update you on the, terrible conditions in the United States, where we're being told at least 38 people have now died after the severe snowstorms and hurricane-force winds that battered much of the United States and Canada. Well, many froze to death in their own cars or found entombed in snowdrifts. Rescue crews still trying to dig out more drivers and residents around Buffalo, New York State particularly, after the worst Arctic blizzard in some 45 years. It even buried the snowplows and breakdown trucks, stranding motorists and cars, killing at least 13 yesterday alone. Well, the lethal conditions started on Friday, drawing freezing air down from the Arctic Circle and then creating what meteorologists described as a bomb cyclone, bringing the freezing conditions as far south as the Mexican border. Let's cross live to the US now and speak to US commentator and host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge, joining us. Paul, thank you very much for your time there in California, which I think is perhaps one of the only areas that escaped because of the Rockies providing a bit of a barrier for you, but apocalyptic scenes across the states.
Apocalyptic's the word. Yeah, 200 million people living under a severe weather warning at the moment. You've just touched on Buffalo, New York, 6 feet of snow. The death toll currently, it's sadly, in a horrible, grim fashion, it is increasing on an hour-by-hour basis. We've got 50 deaths attributed to the storm now, 46 in the US, and sadly 4 in British Columbia. This storm is stretching from Maine to Seattle, which is east coast to west coast in the north. It's stretching from the Canadian border down to the Mexican border with Texas. Florida is seeing its coldest Christmas since 1983. I think you've touched on already the impact of this sudden amount of snow falling in places like Buffalo, New York, just means the actual rescue vehicles, the first responders, can't even get to the vehicles if they could help anybody. You've got people trapped in cars. You've got furnaces blocked, causing death by carbon monoxide poisoning. It is cataclysmic.
And we had President Biden in the White House warning people, to take this seriously. It's not just a snow day where you go out and enjoy yourselves. But it does seem that it's caught the authorities on the hop. But given, I think, hurricane-force winds in addition to the snow. So it was literally a blast across the continent.
Well, this is the thing that, as you called it, it's been called the bomb cyclone, bombogenesis. It's Storm Elliott, apparently. Mixed with the snowstorm. Either one of these two storms, either one of these two weather cycles would cause a problem. But when they combine, you do end up with snow falling very, very rapidly. So there is less time to prepare. There's significant impact on rescue services because they're just not used to 6 feet of snow being arrived in an hour or 2 hours overnight. It's almost impossible to deal with, even if it's predicted.
Now, I gather the worst of the weather has moved through, which is allowing the rescue and recovery teams to get out. But I guess this is the serious situation now where they're coming across people that, as you were saying, literally they're frozen to death in their own cars.
Yeah, there's some harrowing stories. I just read one from a guy who he'd been stranded in the car for 2 days with a 6-year-old child. Fortunately, he's safe and the child is safe, but he ended up with trying to keep the engine running for 2 days, and he just had to give up in the end because he just was about to run out of fuel, and he decided to make a break for it and try and actually walk with the child on his back. Nobody would expect that a country as developed as the United States would be able to have stranded drivers for up to 2 days and still no help being able to get to them. This is weather conditions that we haven't seen. Even if some of the stats we've just shared, some from 1983, and it's the worst in 5 decades, all these combined are looking like the worst storm ever in the United States. And so there are lots of precedents for individual circumstances or individual areas like Buffalo, New York, but so many arriving at exactly the same time. So like I said, you end up with 60% of the US population living under a severe weather warning right at this time is unprecedented.
Yeah, so it's still in force, and as you said, coast to coast. And it does remind you of one of those disaster films. I think Dennis Quaid was in it, when he literally sort of walked across to try and rescue his kids stuck in New York. I mean, it's actually come to pass. I mean, will this make people think twice now about all the warnings about climate change?
Listen, call me an old cynic if you like. I think it's probably going to keep the debate alive because much of this would not have been... Coming out of this is going to be made easier by, frankly, the use of good old-fashioned oil-burning engines. Yeah. And I don't think that we feel that we can deal with something on this scale, frankly, with a wind turbine and a solar cell. And so I think it will actually just create more division, because I can't see too many people believing that this could be alleviated by having 3 different coloured garbage cans.
Yeah, it's the diesel-powered snow ploughs getting out there that are going to do the job to get the roads cleared. Good point, yeah. Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Good to hear that you're safe there, at least in California. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, we've got the guests leaving all their wrapping paper, the piles of presents, the food left over. What should you do to clear up? Well, from donating unwanted presents, yes, there are such things, or tackling the huge clean-up. Expert presenter of How Clean Is Your House, Aggie McKenzie, spoke to Tom and Olivia a little earlier to share her top tips for us.
Tip always is, if somebody else offers to do Christmas, go there. Then you haven't got all the cleaning up to do. But essentially, it's a case of delegating, number one. Get everyone involved, give everyone jobs, and set a timer. You've got so much time to do so much cleaning. But you might find that the oven needs a good clean, and it's a good time of year to do it. After the Christmas roast has been in, there's probably a lot of spillages. Then get it done now. Otherwise, that grease will get baked on. It just is harder to do. Similarly, with any stains on your carpet or upholstery, sort them now, because the longer you leave them, the harder they are to remove in the longer term. In terms of like wrapping paper and stuff, it's a really good idea to recycle it, but you can't recycle all wrapping paper. And so a good way of knowing whether it's recyclable or not is to scrunch the wrapping paper in your hand, and if it stays in a ball, then that's good for recycling. If it kind of unravels, that's a clue that it's plastic, so it goes into your general household rubbish.
That is such an interesting trip, and I had no idea. So perhaps you should sort of have 2 bin bags of wrapping paper, one for the recycling and one for otherwise. What about all of those, all of the wrapping for all of those presents? Because especially if there are little children in your gathering, there's going to be a whole host of perhaps plastic wrap, cardboard wrap, all the rest of it, and that's almost as much as the wrapping paper.
I know, indeed it is. And also, I think if you have small children and they've got far too many presents, I think a good idea would be to just kind of put some of them to one side for later in the week, month or year. Because if the kids are overwhelmed with too much stuff, then they can't see the value of anything. It all gets messy and difficult. The other thing is, we've all got too much food at this, well, a lot of us have too much food at this time of year. And, it's all kind of falling off the fridge shelves and all the rest of it. So my tip is to make good use of your freezer. Most things can be frozen, even milk. So if you've got too much milk and it's about to run out, what you do is you write, with a Sharpie pen on the label, like if it's got 4 days left or 3 days left or whatever, put it in the freezer so that when you take it out, you know how much life the milk has, because once you put it in the freezer, it kind of arrests the deterioration of the milk. So when you bring it back out again, you know how much time you've left on that milk. And you can freeze mostly anything. You just wrap it up, in foil plastic as well, maybe, so that the food's protected from freezer burn.
Some top tips there for you, and apologies for interference on the vision, otherwise known as Tom Harwood's jumper. Suit and tie for you, nothing less here on GB News Live. Now, King Charles III gave his first Christmas speech yesterday to the nation from inside St George's Chapel in Windsor, close, of course, to where the late Queen is buried, and the Duke of Edinburgh as well. Let's hear now from Cameron Walker, our royal reporter, to tell us more about this historic moment.
Was King Charles III's first Christmas message as monarch. In fact, it's the first televised speech that a king has done in the United Kingdom. His Majesty's grandfather and great-grandfather, King George V and King George VI, both broadcast Christmas messages, but it was on the radio rather than television. I think it's particularly significant that the King chose St George's Chapel to deliver his first Christmas message, because it was literally just metres away from the final resting place of his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth II, and his speech very much paid tribute to the life and service of his mother. He thanked the public for their love and support and sympathy during the national mourning period. He said he cannot thank you, as in the public, enough for the love and sympathy. He also spoke of the late Queen's everlasting light and the Queen's faith in God and in her people. And the King referred to the fact that perhaps, or at least he gave a nod to the fact that he very much wanted to continue his mother's work and her service to this country, the United Kingdom. His Majesty also paid tributes to the armed forces and emergency service workers who had worked over the period of the Queen's death, but also in the months since. I think it was particularly significant he referred to specifically the public sector workers, including teachers and emergency services, although, as I've already mentioned, because in the last month there have been public service strikes. Nurses have gone on strikes, train drivers have gone on strikes, even ambulance drivers have as well. Now, the King did not officially specifically refer to the strikes. He remained very much impartial, but he did give a slight nod to the work and the service that the public sector provide. He also referred to the cost of living crisis affecting many in Great Britain, but he paid tributes to communities who have really supported those in need. And he didn't refer to this, but we understand that His Majesty has made a private donation to a fuel poverty charity over Christmas, who are helping those struggling to pay their fuel bills over these cold winter months. Now, the King is head of state, he's head of the Church of England, and obviously Christmas is very much a Christian celebration. But the King was conscious and aware that he is head of a state which includes and welcomes many faiths. So the King referred to Christianity, clearly, and it was recorded in a church, but he also referred to synagogues, he referred to mosques, temples, gurdwaras. He wanted to include all religions in the message of Christmas, and that's one of compassion, kindness and love and inclusivity to some extent as well. And I think that theme of a multi-faith king is something we're going to see going forward throughout His Majesty the King's reign. There was no mention of Harry and Meghan. Funnily enough, he did mention the Prince and Princess of Wales, but I think it was perhaps wise that he didn't mention Harry and Meghan, because if he did, I suspect all of the headlines would be about them. But the overriding theme was that of selfless dedication, specifically referring to his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth II. But I think, again, it's a theme we're very much going to see him carry on as we get closer to his coronation and then beyond, as we continue with the reign of King Charles III.
That was Cameron updating us on his view. Let's get the views now of former BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole, who can join us, which is lovely to see you, and Merry Christmas to you. Michael, thanks for joining us there in Suffolk.
It's Merry Christmas to you, Mark, and to all the listeners and viewers around the world. It was very interesting. As we would expect, it was well written, definitely had his handwriting all over it, and it was well delivered. And 108 days into his reign, he was certainly setting the tone for the sort of king he wants to be. And he wants to be quite clearly a kind, compassionate, and cohesive sort of monarch. And that's the message he wanted to get across, and to a large extent he did. He's got to be careful, Mark, that he is not in any way overtly critical of the government or of government policy and practice, because that would be most unwise. He sailed fairly close to the wind, but I think he got away with it. Because you noticed that too, I'm sure. Yeah. If he wants to, get at loggerheads with the government, there's only going to be one winner, and it's not going to be King Charles III. But as Cameron alluded to, the fact that the visuals, the optics, as we have to call them now, were fascinating. We had a speeding ambulance, we had nurses, And of course, as Cameron said, they're locked in very bitter disputes and strikes with the government. So interesting. And of course, the visuals, the royal visuals, were very, very telling. As Cameron said, he name-checked the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate. No mention of Meghan and Harry, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. We saw the Earl and Countess of Wessex, Edward and Sophie. We saw Princess Royal, Princess Anne at work. No mention at all, no sight of the Sussexes. I mean, if I were doing a football score, I would definitely say House of Windsor 4, House of Windsor 0-0.
Yeah.
So it was a definite home win.
Yeah, well, and we had your view with Cameron, of course, of the Netflix docu-series, as they keep calling it, in our special royal sort of viewing room. But just looking at the figures that we're getting through from the BBC, this is the combined audience, including, yes, GB News figures in there, 10.7 million. Now, this compares to the Queen's final Christmas message a year ago, 8.96 million. So a quite pointed vote of confidence from the public in our new king.
Fascinating. I think that's after the Jubilee. The Jubilee, I felt, was a celebration, the last celebration of the 20th century, and the Queen's funeral, viewed around the world by millions, was the final farewell to the 20th century. I felt that very strongly, and I think people were very interested. And I think what was interesting, and I don't know whether you noticed it, Mark, he didn't appear to be using auto cue. There was a sort of look down, and then I think it added something to the spontaneity and veracity of what he said, because often people who are not used to it, politicians, get glassy-eyed reading the words, and the sincerity goes out of the window.
Yeah.
But I thought that came over. It was undoubtedly sincere. You couldn't have been more sincere. It's very much Charles, and that's how he's always been. And that's how he presumably wants to reign. And there's no reason, of course, his reign is going to be much, much shorter than his mother's record-breaking reign, but a short reign can be extremely successful. His great-great-grandfather, Edward VII, only reigned for 9 years, but he established the Edwardian era, which in retrospect was looked back on as a golden age. And I can tell you that in the First World War, the Tommies in the trenches, they were saying none of this would have happened if King Teddy had been alive, because he was like the grandfather of Europe, and he knew Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany was his cousin, and he'd have had a word with him and have told him not to be such a silly boy.
Yeah.
So there's every reason why the new king's reign should be successful, but he ought to tread very carefully on political toes.
Yes, and clearly he said, you know, I'm not so much of a fool when he was questioned about that originally. But as you say, those images of the health workers particularly pointed, But you make a very interesting point that this was, as you say, very personal and a sort of reflection on the passing of his mama, as he says, and his father, and the whole point that it was delivered from the chapel at Windsor.
Yeah, he made that point, but he didn't dwell too long upon it. I think he's very much keen to establish his own reign and his own rule. And the accent now is, yes, the past was wonderful, it was glorious, we'll miss them, but now is the future. And what you're seeing there is the accent on the Prince of Wales, Prince William, and the Prince presumptive, the heir presumptive, Prince George. They're 9 years old. And that's what he wants to concentrate on, slimming down the royal family, making it more relevant. And I think to some large extent, by mentioning all the 5 main religions in this country other than Christianity, he did bring about a coming together at Christmas. And after all, that's really what the Christmas broadcast is all about.
Absolutely. We'll have to leave it there, but certainly you enjoyed it, as did more than 10 million others. But great to see you, and we wish you a Merry Christmas, of course. Thanks for being with us. That's it from us, but plenty more coming up with Patrick a little later, and indeed our special Royal Report coming up now for you in this next hour. UK is looking chilly out there, mix of clear spells and scattered showers. In detail, the southwest of England this evening, seeing a mixture of heavy showers and then clear spells. Temperatures around 5 to 7 Celsius for most, staying breezy along the coast, adding to the wind chill. Skies clearing then this evening for many parts in the southeast of England. Most places dry, though. Perhaps a few light showers in the east. A rather chilly evening then further across to the west in Wales, with a scattering of showers there, and breezy along the coast there particularly. Temperatures around 4 to 6 Celsius. Plenty of dry weather Boxing Day evening for the Midlands, but the risk too of some showers. Rather cold again, temperatures there down to 3 or 4 degrees. Winds staying light though. Rather breezy this evening then across northern parts of England, and further blustery showers coming in. The showers indeed falling as sleet or snow over the higher ground at times, so on the cold and icy side for many. A blustery Boxing Day evening for Scotland. Further sleet and snow, I'm afraid. Some tricky travelling conditions as a result developing at times, with the ice on untreated surfaces particularly. Temperatures around freezing. An icy evening to come too for Northern Ireland. Sleet and snow showers add to the mix, turning cold, with temperatures tumbling towards freezing and the winds blustery around the coast. So a cold and frosty night for many. Ice in the north, mild, wet, windy weather moving into the west later on. That's how it's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us